Welcome everyone to our exciting online event. And today we are here for having the session on Zero ETL on AWS, escalating insights and eliminating complexity. And through this session, you will get the opportunity to delve into the world of data analytics and cloud practice with our esteemed speaker, Sanchit Jain, the data analytics and cloud practice lead.
Thanks, Prerna. Thank you so much
Yeah.
for that warm welcome. Could you?
Yeah, thank you. And now, who we are and where we stands for. So we are multi-cloud for you. We have a community of more than 100,000 strong technologists from all over the globe, and we specialized in multi-cloud strategies, data science, and artificial intelligence, blockchain, extreme engineering. And we have also shared the get opportunity to through our partners worldwide. So as a part of our community, we will provide you certificate at the end of the session, and we will provide you a secret code to download the certificate. Now moving to the speaker of the day. Who is Sanchit Jain, a data analytics and cloud practice lead at Quantify. He is a speaker on AWS and a certified AWS cloud expert and leading the AWS user group in Mumbai. And his domain expertise is in DevOps, AWS cloud, data lake, security, and serverless. And for more information about him, you can go through these links. Now over to Sanchit Jain.
Sure. Thank you so much. Thank you guys for joining the session. I know everyone, today is Saturday for people around the world, the people from US. I know it's early morning for you based on your time zone. Where are you? For the people in India, it's going to be late evening, somewhere around like 9:15 p.m. So thank you so much for everyone joining from the different part of the world. I really appreciate you took out the time to hear me out in today's session. I'll make sure that for this next couple of an hour or so, we have a good learning around it. And the people who are hearing me for the first time, please feel free to ask the questions and put it in the chat. The people who already know me, they know how I give my talk. But for the people who are hearing me for the first time, please don't hesitate. Ask questions, ask as many questions as possible, right? Very basic to complex. I'm here to answer all of your questions. Just in case if you have any specific scenario questions, the issues what you're facing and you don't want to share here publicly, maybe you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'll put my LinkedIn URL in the chat. You can reach out to me offline. With that, let me quickly start with Zeroetl on AWS, accelerating insights and eliminating complexity. I think the title itself clearly mentioned what exactly we will be doing today and what we are talking about. So let me go ahead and let me talk about a couple of things, right? So how I just want to understand how many people again. Please use the chat which is there on the right bottom, right? How many people are here in this particular audience are a data engineer or a data analyst, or maybe you are someone who's dealing with data pipelines or generating analytics on operational data. May I get a quick vote around how many people are either of these personas? One, I can see one of them is there. Cool. So yeah, I can see most of the people are raising the hands, which is a good sign that this session is meant for you. So for all the people who have not heard terms like data ETL or data engineering, don't worry about it. I'll make sure that you get the basics of it and we can take it from there. But the people out here who have been into ETL, who have been working on this building the data pipelines or data analytics, you will closely relate to this session that why the session is more important for you guys. So please stay tuned and let's make that we get the best out of it. Today's agenda standpoint, I'll talk about data pipeline overview challenges, how exactly AWS will help us to simplify all of these things, what are the different features. Then we'll have a quick demo. I'll take a real life example and I'll walk you through how data pipeline can simplify that. and then we'll go towards the resources. So, as a speaker, I think my introduction is already done. I'll quickly talk about I lead the data analytics and cloud practice lead at Quantify. Along with that, I'm also an AWS hero, AWS ambassador, and an MVP by Multiply Cloud for You. And also, as the host mentioned, I also lead the AWS User Group Mumbai lead, and have been giving the talks at different events, national, international. We talk about AWS Summit, community days, user groups, or you talk about at reInvent. You can reach out to me. You can just scan the barcode. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn, or you can DM me on Twitter, or you can follow my GitHub. I do write different blogs on thought leadership to technical workshop. You can engage with me in any forum if you need help, and I'll be happy to help you around with that. I'll give you a second in case if someone is scanning the barcode. You can scan it. In case if you don't have your mobile handy, you can just go to LinkedIn and you can just search Sanchit Jain space quantify. You will get my profile there. And maybe you can send me a request. I'm happy to accept that. Before we go around and understand what is Zeroetl pipeline, how it helps, and a lots of good stuff, right? We need to understand what exactly is the data pipeline overview, right? Why you need data pipeline, what are the challenges? That's how you will be able to correlate and connect to it. So understanding from a world, right? Who I mean, any person out here would easily correlate with this architecture, right? With simple process flow, where on the left hand side you have those different sources, right? Different sources range from databases, any SAP, SaaS application, third party data, media, streaming data, right? Even let's say if you're a business person, think of any smart device what you have, maybe your iPhone, maybe your device, or maybe your smartwatch, right? So you have different forms of device. You are in a world where you're living with the data, right? And what sense it makes if you don't understand that data, don't process that data, right? To make more business outcome of it or get more understanding of it. As simple as I'm wearing a fit smartwatch, right? The whole idea of the smartwatch is to track my activity of my daily activity and help me out to make some insights of it, right? Which is what my sleep cycle is, the staircase I'm climbing, the steps which I'm taking, the oxygen level, and so forth, right? So everywhere, whatever the devices we use, we want to understand some insights from that device based on what the consumption and what kind of use case. So that's why you see, in order to get the full picture of view, you need to do some sort of a massaging, slice dice of that data. So that's where you can, at the end, when the data is available, you can allow your end user to consume that data. That's very simple example, I would say, when it comes to your entire business, whatever the business you are, whether you're an e-commerce business, whether you are in technology or any part of industry, insurance, healthcare, manufacturing, or maybe you are building a product. This is a very simple flow of, I would say, 10,000 feet view of how exactly is all data source, why you need that entire business flow, and how it consumes. Let's add some more colors to this architecture now. So this is how the processes which we were in the previous slides looks like, right? Data source on the left still remains the same, but this data sources is been then processed throughout these different phases. And anyone out here, as I can see in the audience, there were many data engineers and analysts and ETL developers. You can easily correlate with this architecture, right? In this architecture, you will see a data ingestion where exactly you acquire the data. The data sources can be on your on-prem, maybe on your server, or maybe on any cloud, where you can ingest the data, put it into the raw zone, and from that raw zone, you do processing, right? Processing is like cleansing the data, purifying it, removing outliers, enriching that data, joinings, and those kinds of good stuff, right? Put it around in transformation. And at the last, you're going to make it a curated, consumable, or actionable data, which via consumption, the consumption you just allow your business to play around with the data. And then consumption can be of any form, right? It can be APIs, it can be visualization, any machine learning, so forth, so on, so forth. And that's where you also have cataloging to search metadata about your data, as well as you have security governance and DevOps and other best practices like workflow schedulation, monitoring, troubleshooting, and SLA. So that's how your entire full-blown an ETL system looks like. It was very easy for me to explain it, right? You might be also thinking, yeah, this is just like a bread and butter for me, like an easy to go, right? I mean, if you're really thinking that this is a very easy press button and easy to implement, let me tell you the hard fact of life. This is not as easy as it looks like. It's much more complicated what exactly it is. And let's understand what are the pain points you are getting in each of this, right? So first of all, there's a complex and cumbersome application code. So as I mentioned, there is an ingestion, right? Ingestion in terms of these different sources. Now the sources are of different varieties. Some are flat files, some are streaming data, some are structured, unstructured, SQL, NoSQL. You have different varieties of data, and for each variety of data you need to write that code, maintain those code, right? So it is very difficult and very complex. Second, it is incomplete, inconsistent, and stale insights. In order to, let's say, think of you're writing an application code and something went wrong in that code. There is some error in that Python script or any JavaScript which you are ingesting the data. What is going to happen? Your entire downstream application pipeline will be stalled unless you fix that error, and which leads to stale insights. Stale insights is like the insights are out of the date because your business will not able to consume it. You don't have the data available, or maybe your script is working fine, but the schema got changed or the data model got changed, which is leading to inconsistent data. So those are the issues what you get when you have this complex application code. It also leads to data pipeline management very difficult and tedious. You need like strong hands on keyboard, trained resources, trained eyes who are looking around, understanding the data pipeline and making sure that it's running fine. Then you have some validation cycles before you open up the data to people to democratize it. So it's not a simple job, which also needs that you need specialized human resources. Like you need people who are trained, who have been doing experience to solve the production issues and those kinds of skills, which ultimately leads to increase in the scale, in the cost, time, and scale which is required to democratize and make the data available to your business personas. Think of an Amazon.com. When a big billion sale, they want to allow the data every fraction of minute to be allowed to visualize by their marketing team and the business team, but you cannot provide that data because your pipeline cannot scale to that volume. That's where you see the hurdles coming around in your business, like how exactly faster in a simplified form and with proper security out of the box, how you democratize your data to different of your downstream business application so they don't wait when my data will be available, and how I can process it and get more advantage of that. So those are the different challenges what you see, and this exactly what your will I mean what your expression and things would be when you really get into it. Like I have literally burned my hands while working in the data pipeline. Sometimes the data pipeline works fine, but when I run a SQL query to validate, oh, the pipeline ran empty, but data is not available in the database. Many times the data is loaded with some of the columns which are truncated. Sometimes it got loaded, but the validation got failed because the schema got changed, right? Some specific data type of a column got changed. And then it feels like, why this is so annoying? Why this is so complicated? Can I get some superpowers to fix it? And I don't have to wait hours and hours to maybe contact to platform team, to my DevOps team, to my database team. Can you truncate the table? Let's reload this. Let's rerun the pipeline. It leads too much of chaos on the floor, talking to so many people, so many personas, the time delay, the pressure from the business team, and this is what it feels like. I'm pretty sure the people who are working in this particular pipeline can easily correlate what I am talking about here in terms of the expression, and many people would already have a migraine or an headache, or I would say how we have an exam fever, you called as a production fever. Today I'm going to be deploying in production. I'm not going to office because I know the pipeline may not work, or it may work and I might have to burn my midnight over it to fix it, right? I'm pretty sure I can get those nodding heads even though you guys are not on the cam. I can correlate that very easily. And that's where we see some framework what we need, some simplified solutions what we need, which can help us to solve this problem without compromising on any of the aspects which is required to run the business, right? Which is required from a cost perspective, performance, and security. And that's how I'll focus majorly to get you the sense on why AWS zero ETL services are more important to be adapted. Again, Does that mean this strategy will work for all the business? Does that mean you really need to leverage near real time insights? Absolutely not. It is all depends on what is your use case, and that's how we will understand. I will take one use case and will walk you through with different services. It all depends on what use case you are trying to solve and how is your business user is going to consume it. If your, I mean, Zeroetl is going to simplify your entire life of developer, but do you want to run your pipeline near real time, batch mode? It's all depends on how your business users are consuming the data. If someone is going to consume once in a day, absolutely no need to run the pipeline near real time. Maybe you can run in a batch mode, because that's much cost of infrastructure you're going to incur. So let's be cautious and conservative of what is your business use case and accordingly design the ETL pipeline. So this is about three things I'll more focus around. Uh, Services for connecting a data source, ETL, serverless ETL, right, which is glue, and the different features around the zero ETL perspective. These are the three things which we'll be focusing a lot. The first thing I'll start with is a first two box, which is a service for the services connecting to different sources and glue. If I take few slides back, we just understand that in order to connect to different types of sources like database, files, streaming, SaaS application, you need to write different application code. Why you need to write a different application code? To consume your data. It's very important, right? Now, absolutely, in order to consumption of data, either you have to write the application code or you need someone else to write it in a managed form, so you don't have to write it, either of them. And that's where you see AWS is helping around, that they don't want you to write the code. They can help you to write that code which is thoroughly tested, secured, right, validated, and available to scale with all sorts of design, object oriented programming, and all those kinds of complexity. And they allow you to more focus on what you want to do post your data is available. And that's one of the different sets of services what I have mentioned, few of them, like Amazon Flow, Kinesis Firehose, Athena, QuickSight, Data Sync, Data Exchange, Glue, SageMaker. This all different services. There are many more. I have listed a couple of them. These are the services which provides integration to different data sources out of the box, and we'll deep dive in one a couple of these services in upcoming slides too. But the whole idea is, the option one is either you can write your own custom code, which is going to take a lot of development time, effort, as well as testing and a lot of scaling to make it robust and available. The second option is whether you leverage AWS services, which provides connector out of the box and which simplifies it. Absolutely, as a smart business users, we are going to more focus on the second option, because that way I don't have to configure these things. I can directly consume these connectors by providing the right sets of credentials, sources, point to the right target source, and point to the right target, and more focus on my processing rather than my ingestion. And that's where one of the interesting service which I do personally like a lot is Amazon Flow. Amazon Flow make it very easy. Connectors, they provide somewhere around 50 plus different connectors, and those sets of connectors varies across AWS cloud, any third party SaaS application. You can easily connect with Airflow, whether maybe you have a Salesforce, Zendesk, any kind of those kinds of SaaS applications, or you have different kinds of AWS cloud services like databases. You can easily integrate with Airflow. The connectors, 50 plus connectors, are provided out of the box. They also provide cataloging and partitioning capability. And without writing the code, you can directly ingest the data, put it into S3, Redshift catalog. Glue catalog is already there, so you have a S3, and you can partition the data and you can make it available to consume it by your different business team, uh, or by different machine learning engineers and kinds of the folks, right, which is required to consume the data without writing the code. So that's where it's very important, and it also scales, so you don't have to worry about what size of cluster I have to provide, or do I need to scale it, do I need to deploy in 2 subnets, or do I need to deploy in 5 subnets. You don't have to take care of it. AWS behind the scene take care. This is a managed service, and you have to more focus around what kind of credential you need to provide. Not only that, just in case if you don't get the connectors out of the box, Airflow, the best part is you can also design your own custom connector. That's the interesting part. So even if you, let's say, have some old traditional system which doesn't have the connector, and you have a good developer at your end, you can write that application code, build that connector with help of Airflow, and leverage more Airflow from an infra scaling perspective. And that is one of the good part, and I like that's one of the reason I like Airflow a lot, that it not only provides the connector out of the box, but also allows you to write custom connectors, and infrastructure scaling wise they can deal with it. And also it can integrate with different other orchestration services like step function you talk about, Apache Airflow you talk about, which also make it sound like a visual and visual workflow. So you can see at each stage what's happening with your data ingestion without worrying about, is it working, is it not working, where exactly it stands, does it pass, does it fail. That kind of visual workflow you can build with the help of the integration. Similarly, and another interesting service which I'm pretty much sure, even if you have been not working on AWS, but you would have heard a name, something called as a service which is called as a AWS Glue or serverless ETL. So Glue is nothing but a multi-purpose kind of an ETL tool, which allows you uh, do different kinds of perspective. It's not only, I mean, even though most probably we always refer as AWS Glue as an ETL service, but it does a lot more than just an ETL. Like it can allows different Glue connectors, what you need. It also provides to catalog the data. ETL, as mentioned, you can also have schema registry. You can have a lot of other stuff, right? So Glue does a lot of other thing outside ETL, right? Just think of, if you are a kind of a business person, right, who wants to only use for an notebook per perspective, or maybe understand the data, right? Mostly we as a business users do an ED on exploratory data analysis. So that's why you can use something called as Glue Data Brew, so you can understand the data, profile it, identify the gaps in that data without writing any sorts of code. I mean, there are many other sessions which I've done in the past around Glue Data Brew. You can check out on the YouTube about those sessions. In case if you don't get it, reach out to me on the LinkedIn. I can help you with the links. So Data Brew is very interesting. Again, no code kind of analyzer, or I would say profiling service, which can allow you to understand your data. Glue Studio, a very good intuitive UI where you can drag and drop. If you have a very simple ETL use cases, you can leverage the things which are provided out of the box. If you have a complex business things, a business logic that you want to code, you can also have some custom code written in that, so you can play around and you can get around it. I'll walk you through the UI, how it looks like, and other kinds of stuff, what I'm just mentioning, so you can correlate that. And at the last, you also have this Glue notebook for data engineers. If you are writing, let's say, Spark job or Python PySpark, you're writing Scala Spark, you want to test it, you want to design, connect the data, test it, and then deploy your code. You can have an interactive Glue notebook where you can design it live, test it. Once it is working, take the script, put it into your pipeline, and run the ETL pipeline end to end, right? So that's the entire seamless data integration. What do you get with Glue? So I'll take a pause before I go to the third section for a minute. Do you have any questions so far which I can able to answer it?
So
Yeah.
is it like data brew and data notebook is all the data brew we have heard about. Data notebook is the recent one, is it? Like for data engineering?
No, so data notebook is also you can leverage, that is called as a glue endpoints, right? So endpoints is something what can also allow you to do it. So it's not a new service, it's an existing one around it which you can reuse. If you are not familiar with glue notebook, you would have heard similarly called as EMR notebooks, right? Like how
Yes, yes.
EMR notebooks or
Yes, like
Jupyter.
MapReduce.
Correct. Similar kind of glue also has it via developer endpoints. You can leverage those notebooks. Dev endpoints or developer endpoints are there on the console, which are there from almost like 2 3 years.
Right.
uh, any further questions before I move ahead? Okay, cool. I think we are good. Let me go ahead with the next slide. So I was talking about the Zeroetl feature, right? I think we have understood what are the different connectors which AWS provides, which help us to simplify the entire ingestion perspective. We also understand how exactly the glue becomes this entire, not just the ETL, an entire modern purpose service, which can help you to do a lot of other value-added data transformation and many more things. Now let's understand what are the different features in the services which have been introduced by AWS over time, different time frame, which now help you to have this the entire zero ETL concept what we are talking about. If you're thinking zero ETL has just been renowned like a term in last 2 3 months or last in four couple of months or couple of like 6 to 8 months, then absolutely not. If I'll just walk you through what are the different different features AWS has been launching at multiple reinvents and over time and time. And if you connect the dot, that you will understand that this zero ETL does exist from almost 2 to 3 years back. It's not just a new thing which has been there. People have started recognizing this framework, and that is why this has become a new thing. But it's there. You've been using it in some form, some shape from almost like I would say last a year or two back. Let's understand what exactly it looks like, right? That's what I was talking about. So I'm pretty sure we all started our journey, like if I talk about 2016, 2017, somewhere around 2017 is where like 2017, 2018 Glue was being launched. EMR used to be there in 2015, 2016, but Glue was launched somewhere around 2016, 17 time frame around it. Which brought a revolutionary as a serverless ETL. And that's where AWS started slowly one step in that journey of more towards simplifying the life of an ETL developer, I would say, by providing different native integration for data lakes. When we talk about with Glue, they also move one step ahead with federated queries, which we'll see they have offered federated queries for Athena and Redshift both. They also have started providing built-in ML integrations for all different services. We know we might be knowing a couple of them, but I'll walk you through detail like what are the different services around it. Data sharing exchange, direct streaming ingestion, auto copy from S3, and finally Amazon Zero ETL. So we all know that AWS announced Zero ETL in 2022 reInvent, but that's not the start of the Zero ETL, as I said, right? If you look at this entire plan or staircase, they started from their journey of moving towards zero ETL paradigm, right? When they launched Glue, and every year by year they have made significant progresses across different services, which today allow them to leverage that entire zero ETL ecosystem. And we will talk about all of this feature in upcoming slides. Now, like as I said, I was talking about, right, ETL we just covered in the few slides. The next was the data federation. I'm pretty sure most of the people out here, if you have insights about where your data has been stored, you would be having a simple ask. Hey, my data is all over the place. It's maybe on different clouds, it's in on-prem, some different kinds of complex enterprise system. How exactly can I leverage all of that and do some insights? So that's why you see all something called as Athena. Athena do have data federation, where with that data federation, you can federate the queries, and without migrating the data, Athena can help you to run the queries against these sources, and you can run the data. Maybe let's say you have some data on your Amazon S3, some different clouds or on-prem. You can use Amazon federation feature, Athena's federation feature, and you can do different analytics and then connect on QuickSight without really migrating the actual data. So that's the interesting part, that you don't have to write ETL, migrate those legacy terabytes of data, do around it and all. Again, from a production standpoint, is it that scalable kind of a stuff? There are certain things which still work in progress in terms of this is a very, I would say, a pipeline or a simple copy thing which is there. It does not allow you to slice. I mean, it does not allow you to may do a major any sort of an ETL kind of an use case. But if you have, let's say, all the data processed, curated, and stored, which you want that final data set which is ready prepped, and you want to join that against another prep data and do a visualization, then Athena is very good for any low hanging stuff which you can easily join your transformed data set and visualize it into QuickSight without really migrating it. So for those kinds of low hanging stuff, this is a good to go service, I would say. Similarly, you can also have federation using Redshift Spectrum, right? Redshift Spectrum, we all know. We have been leveraging Redshift Spectrum right from the days, I would say, Redshift was there, right? And that's how you, as I said, right? Most of the people would not even understand. Is Redshift Spectrum a zero ETL service? Absolutely, it's a zero ETL services because you don't have to leverage to move the data. If you already have your cold data setting in S3, you can have Spectrum to point to that Redshift to the data on S3, and you can query the data without doing the ETL to load that cold data back to the warm storage, which is on the Redshift cluster, and then query. That is also one of a simplified way of zero ETL, and which that is a common pattern which we are doing from ages now, right? And taking to that next level is what they have not just been leveraging as an S3. They can also now, we can also do a federated queries across different RDS system. If you have RDS MySQL, Postgres, Aurora, right? You can extend the same pattern what we were previously doing with S3 to other of this RDS sources on AWS, and you can query them to Redshift, and you can do it. Think about, you are an e-commerce kind of a organization or retail. Most of them uses OLTP system, and they want to leverage Redshift to do OLAP queries. One option is absolutely you who run different glue job, keep migrating the data and keep running those. The other is you can leverage federation, and without actually migrating your data, you can join on the fly this data with help of federation, and you can put it into Redshift and do OLAP on top of it. And the best part is it also supports open table formats, like who are having sound knowledge of data engineering. You can also have like open table formats which allows you to handle the change data capture with Apache Hudi and Delta Lake, all those kinds of modern concepts. Then next comes, which we all know, in reInvent 2022, AWS announced zero ETL integration with Amazon Redshift. So as I said in the previous slide also, federation is one part of it. Second is also you can use, in case of federation, you are not actually copying the data. People generally get confused between what is federation versus what is zero ETL. It is almost the same. Absolutely. Yeah, it may look similar, but it is a different thing. Think of it, federation is more just query on the fly, right? On the fly you query the data, join it and process it. Whereas in zero ETL, the data is auto sync into the Redshift cluster. So let's say if you have any transaction which is newly getting added or it's already there, they are on the fly automatically getting copied to the Redshift cluster once you enable the zero ETL integration. So it's not, it differs from federation, but that's where exactly it is. There are a couple of things which are still work in progress, which I am sure AWS will be coming out soon, like how exactly on the fly you can do some sort of a slice dice of the data. Like currently it is a continuous replication, like a pipeline. I would say loosely term will be like some stream pipeline of data without allowing you to filter it. I'm sure AWS would come up that filtration option also very soon here. But for now, it really helps you. And again, if that feature is not available, need not to worry, because once the data is in Redshift, you can use PSQL and RSQL. You can leverage and slice that data and do a lot of stuff around it. So that's not a problem in case if those features are not there as of today. Similarly, they also announced a streaming ingestion support at the same reInvent, where most of the time what we do is we have the streaming sources, right? Maybe you're doing some business use cases like online transaction, fraud detection kind of stuff, or maybe some sort of a real-time analytics for any telematics data. You want to process that data as soon as the data is available. You don't have to wait for even like some seconds to do it. You want to process it in microseconds kind of thing, where in a traditional way the data used to be from Kinesis, AWS MSK or Confluent, where you take the data, put it to S3, put it to warehouse and do all those kinds of stuff, right? And run those things. That's one way. Or maybe you might be leveraging Kinesis data analytics services, or manage, which is now also represent as a managed Flink services. So those are the different options you would have done. Even I have done the same architectures and same pattern around it. But with the streaming ingestion support, you don't have to do and deal with all of these things, because you can on the fly, if you once your data lands into any of the streaming services after the producer is pushing the data to the service, you can directly write or flush that data to Redshift, and Redshift can become your entire thing, right? Think of it, you are running a kind of a marathon, where it is very important that you want to give a live trend of who what different kinds of feeds that's coming around, or what kind of people are talking about that thing. Those kinds of live feed you want to monitor it. Option one is you have those live feed, maybe the Twitter ingested to some of your streaming services. That data goes to S3, then there will be a Spark streaming or Glue streaming, consuming the data, putting it into Redshift or some databases, right? That kind of stuff. The other option could be that on the live, you have the data from the Twitter or any application real time with help of your streaming thing, directly push it to Redshift. End of the day, it's a JSON data, and you can leverage JSON data easily in Redshift, and you show and refresh that dashboard on the fly with some small microseconds delay, and you show like a tweet live feed. Okay, who's talking about the marathon, what people are talking about, and other kinds of good things, right? So that are the different use cases what you can do now on the fly with streaming ingestion. Similarly, there is also another thing is which is autocopy of Redshift data. Well, I mean, autocopy of the Amazon S3. So don't get confused with Spectrum. Spectrum was a different cold data. If you have a normal data which is there in Amazon S3, maybe a new data set. Previously, we used to write a glue load job to do it. Now, AWS provides a Redshift copy which automatically ingests the data, right? Whenever it continuously monitors the S3, so you have to fire the copy job one time. It automatically keep listening to the new files which are added to a particular folder within the bucket and keep pushing it to the Redshift. So you have to fire it one time, and automatically ongoing incremental basis, any new data that lends to that particular registered folder, you will start seeing that job will kick off behind the scene, and it will run load the data into the Redshift, which previously this Redshift copy job was nothing but a glue job, which we have to write the code, and then write the code either in Python, or write the code into the Spark Python or some sort of a EMR job, and write that data into Redshift, which now gets simplified with out of the box capability of Amazon Redshift. Data sharing, most of the time when I'm working with my different customers, the always ask has been from different customers is, hey, can you tell me how exactly I can simplify my entire pipeline without worrying about how exactly my entire team is going to do it, right? I don't want my marketing team to create another sets of clusters of Redshift, or they do the same processing which I'm doing it. Someone, another maybe finance team wants to understand the billing of the customer. How I don't want to give them the entire raw data, only give them the subset of data. And this is the very common scenarios which I do get when I'm working with different customers. And that's where Redshift data sharing is one of my favorite feature, where you don't have to really worry about things like who is the, how exactly the security of the data has been from a consumption standpoint, what data needs to be shared, in what form, how much data. Those all get simplified because you being the producer process the data, store it, and from a consumption standpoint, you can handle that consumption with all security out of the box. So like this data sharing behind this, you can also integrate with lake formation, and out of the box you can make it secured, like okay, who has a permission, the RBAC, and those kinds of things, which makes you secured, safe, rather than worrying about whether my marketing team would have enabled some sort of a security or not, or whether would my finance team would not leak my data. You always have that fear of, if I open my data, these people may not understand, or they may start querying the data which they should not be, even because I have to give the entire data set, I cannot refine it. Those all fears goes out of it once you have data sharing in place. And as I mentioned, it can also integrate with lake formation, so you can simplify this entire kind of access management and other kinds of things. The best part of, if you want to understand in actual industry, data sharing as data sharing has been used across different industry, but one of the largest financial bank of US has been leveraging data sharing and it is on the AWS website. You can look into it. They are publicly promoting and talking about how exactly data sharing has simplified working within their organization itself. And we all know how complex the systems are for a banking firm, right? Not only from a customer, they have their internal different teams, not the typical financial and marketing team. They have much more compliances, regulatory, governance, all different pressure. And with help of data sharing, how they have simplified it. There's a good blog by AWS with one of the largest bank of US. I would request maybe you can read around, and if you don't get it, just reach out to me LinkedIn. I'll share that with you guys. As I was talking about even in the previous slide about the built-in ML integration, right? What exactly the AWS provide built-in? These are the different built-in ML provides are there, right? Previously, if you have Aurora, as I was talking about, if you want to do a fraud detection, one option is you can write it. Second option is if you get something out of the box. So now you have Aurora ML, Neptune ML, Redshift, Athena, QuickSight. We all know the ML. And the best part, I think, we all know that we are sitting in an era where there is a generative AI, there is vector data, and other kinds of modern machine learning or machine learning system in place, which allows us to do more and more with data. And how now with help of generative AI, how we can also generate the things with help of the existing data what we have. So that's where it becomes very important how exactly all of these different data services also provides machine learning out of the box and capability to have vector databases and those kinds of things to enable and work with this new technology or the innovation. Think of it like you want to do and solve one of a fraud detection use case, which we saw the architecture previously, right? What could you have done? You would have some sort of a data which some transaction data would you will capture from a website. You will have the data stored into Redshift. Some model running on SageMaker would consume the data from Redshift and would flag, do a runtime inference with help of Lambda or some other services, whether that given transaction record is a faulty or a fraud or not. That's how we generally do, right? But now with AWS, now I mean the AWS Redshift ML, you don't have to do around it. You can out of the box integrate machine learning, whether really having deploying SageMaker, doing inference, and those kinds of things. You don't have to worry about it. You can do with Redshift ML itself, and how exactly there is a predictive chain customer function which Redshift provide out of the box. That's where you can call it a runtime and make an inference. And not only that, the many people might have a question on this call, how exactly it allows me to train. So the same process how you do a custom training cycle, same what you can do it. It just simplifies and minimize the hops and the latency which we have to take to understand the data and to make those different decisions. Before I move to the demo and I walk you through actually whatever we have learned so far can apply to a live architecture, let me take a pause. Do you guys have any questions about so far? Why do you need? What are Zeroetl? How it can help and other details? If you have any questions, please put it in the chat. I'll be happy to answer them.
Compared to the on-premise, nowadays every enterprise is moving to this digital, am I right? Blue and everything. How far it is like it is out of the technical question. I just want to know. All the companies started adapting this glue, all these practices now.
So, as I mentioned, that's an interesting question. As I mentioned, have companies started leveraging data brew or this modern data engineering technology, right? The answer is yes. Which technology, which services, all depends on what's your use case around it, right? How exactly, what kind of use case you're trying to solve and how you want to solve, that's all depends on your architecture. Now, it's the same thing. Whether all the organization are leveraging streaming ingestion, the answer may be yes or maybe no. It depends on how you want to do it, right? Or maybe every
But
organization.
legacy things they won't go, am I right? legacy like banks and all, like they hardly will go like this to cloud. Am I right?
No,
What do you think? So
so basically, see, the whole thing is, if your question, and sorry if I have not understand, if your question is more around whether the legacy on-prem system will go away and cloud is that new look, the answer is
no, no,
absolutely
no, no,
yes.
no. My question is, the legacy people, the legacy banks are not adapting to cloud. Am I right? Even though it is faster, scalable, agile, and everything, they are not using it. Correct?
That's
Because
a,
of the security purpose. Correct?
I think that's exactly wrong.
Wrong, is it?
Most,
Right.
yeah,
Okay.
99.9% of the bank
Yeah.
are trying on to be on the cloud. Whatever their preferred cloud platform is, they are looking forward to the cloud and they are doing on the cloud.
Oh.
I'll not able to quote an example of this,
Mostly
but one of,
fintech people actually. Fintech.
yeah, fintech, as well as even in India, there are many banks which I know are on the cloud, are
Okay.
already on the cloud.
Okay. Okay.
So
So it's
I mean,
good
not
to
even
know.
just the US, not even just the US or Europe, even the largest banks in India, public sector, government sectors, I mean, public, private sectors, banks are on the cloud. So, I
Oh,
mean, I don't think any industry or segment of industry is left from that revolution of cloud era. I think I would say we have already surpassed of that cloud era transformation. We are already on the cloud. We are not to the cloud, we are already on the cloud. That's
all
where
the
the
thing.
world is there.
Right. Thanks. Thanks, Sanjay. That's what my question is. Thank you.
Any other question, I am happy to answer. If not, then I'll move towards the actual demo where we will do the same thing, right? Which I think you might be in your head going around, wow, this sounds good, but how exactly does simplify my architecture? Or maybe how that can simplify the time which takes for me to go to market. So let me go ahead. And if there are any questions, please put it in the chat. I'll be happy to answer them. I know we are, I'll quickly go through the demo and then we'll take the questions or any questions or queries what you have. So think of we are running a shop, maybe a shop, and I won't say e-commerce precisely, but we are running a shop where we are selling clothes, sports merchandise. I have different sports. Maybe IPL will be coming around soon, so I have, let's say, t-shirts, merchandise for different IPL teams, right? And that's what I provide. I have an offline store around it, and I do a lot of things like I have CRMs. I mean, everything is running on cloud, but I have different CRMs. I do mobile payments. I do have websites for tracking my orders and all kind of technology based things. My architecture looks like something like this as of today, where on the left side you see all different kinds of sources: product data, supplier data, customer data, order data, click streams, and other data files, right? Standard architecture, standard different sources, what you can refer to. Then you have this entire transactional databases, like different databases of Aurora, maybe different databases, different tables in same cluster. Then for clickstream, you have streaming Kinesis data stream. With help of Glue, I extract the data from this transactional, put it into Redshift, put it into S3. Clickstream data also goes to S3. Flat file directly goes to S3. From this raw data, I do all this ETL, like cleansing, what we understood, like cleansing the data, curating it, transforming, putting into Redshift. And at the last, I democratize that data. By SQL client, you talk about like Redshift query editor, I mean, Workbench, QuickSight, or you have any other data source, visualization, or machine learning. I'm assuming most 99% of the people out here on this call would agree this is the traditional architecture anyone would design when you want to build a data lake or do analytics on a retail kind of a use case, right? Now let's move one step ahead. Let's understand what are the different features and how this architecture gets simplified with all the feature what we have understand. Step one, we understood there is something called as a Redshift federated queries, where you can directly with without doing ETL, all of this glue, S3 glue kind of thing, you can, with help of Redshift, you can directly run the queries against Aurora and can get the output from it. And then second is also we have seen is Redshift Spectrum, where you can have the kind of a cold and a warm data or auto copy, which can allow you to bring the data to the S3 without having glue. So let's move to that feature. So I've removed the entire that cycle and replace it with federated query. Here I replace it, I have the spectrum. I also, third point added, which we just understand, is a auto ingestion using Aurora Zeroetl, which we saw the new feature which was announced by AWS at reInvent 2022, almost a year back. We replace the entire pipeline. If I take one step back, this entire glue S3 glue can also be replaced with the Zeroetl. So you might be confused that, okay, I may also have a federated query which was the same pattern, data ingestion is the same pattern. Again, as I said, I'm just trying to give you the sense of what are the different features or how this can simplify the architecture. It may be very simple as that we leverage the same Zeroetl for both the options, but I just want to show you the different varieties of it. But you can simplify that based on your use case. But the whole idea is, with minimal writing of code, out of the box provided capabilities and connectors, how you can simplify your entire architecture. That's our end goal as well. So that's step 3. Step 4, with Kinesis, I can also use streaming ingestion, which allows me to directly flush the data to Redshift, which we just look into it, right? I can leverage the same. And if I go back, I can, instead of putting this to S3 putting it to Glue, and Glue to Redshift, I can directly have this screen Kinesis data and directly put it into Redshift, which can allow me to do some sort of a more of anomaly detection also. Tomorrow, let's say if I expand my business, not just from a landing page to an e-commerce site, I can also use things like fraud detection with the same architecture. So those kinds of additional things what you can do. Now let's understand autocopy, right? So previously it was that S3 data was, with help of glue, was being written to the S3, to Redshift. That entire thing get replaced with autocopy. So now you see the architecture which was previously versus now, all of this, most of the glue jobs were replaced by these different services and features provided by AWS. Now some might be confused, am I actually replacing, and you're telling me that this all features of Zeroetl is going to replace glue? No, absolutely not. It is helping you to simplify your entire architecture. Glue still there in some form, some shape. If you are not using glue, AWS is using behind the scenes glue. Like if you're not using glue here for Zeroetl, AWS will be leveraging the glue behind the scene on behalf of you. So glue is not getting replaced, it's just simplifying it. Instead of you writing the code, leveraging scaling and testing and doing all of those things. Now let's focus on the consumptions point. We have optimized what we can do here, but let's focus now on the consumption standpoint. 6 point, we understand there was something called as a machine learning, and we all know we are sitting like in, there are different things coming out from AWS at this year invent, Amazon Q you talk about, or you talk about QuickSight Q, generative AI. I want to do all those kinds of stuff. So now with Amazon Redshift ML, I can do all. Now LLM is also integrated here. So I can do Redshift ML here, right? And I can use Amazon QuickSight Q for with Redshift. I can also make a complex architecture. If you, let's say, operate in a different geography, or you have different teams, you scale your business from a small shop, you go to a big kind of a business venture where you have 1,000 different franchisees and you scale your business, you also need to scale your architecture with that. And that's why you also want data sharing, so you can share your data with your marketing team, with your customer analytics team, with your entire financial team, so they can understand that data and do a lot more with the same architecture, same Zeroetl fashion. How you can more simplify or make it more enterprise without making a lot of changes. And that's how the architecture mostly will look like, starting from what we were there, which was heavy hop with glue and S3, and where we are currently, which gives you the entire enterprise architecture with minimal set of codes and more focused on the consumption point rather than building the pipelines, scaling the pipelines, and more doing those quality kind of things on your code which you're developing for building those pipelines. So that's how you can simplify with whatever we have just studied in this different concepts of Zeroetl, and you can apply this on your architecture. And this, I'm telling you, this is a general architecture which I picked up. You can apply the same way how I have done, start eliminating it point by point with new things and modernize it. You will see you can easily upgrade your current architecture with Zeroetl based architecture and focus more on consumption of data rather than on processing or maybe making it more sliced died and massaging it so you can consume it. So that was more from a demo perspective from my side. I want to open up for any questions, any concerns, any observation what you have, which we can discuss and we can talk about that.
So thank you, Sanchit, for delivering such a wonderful and informative session. So participant, do you have any question you can ask?
Hey Sanchit, I mean, just a general scenario. So
Sure.
let's say there are traditional ETL jobs that enterprises have, right? One such example is a lot of enterprises are using, let's say, older technologies like IBM data stage, okay,
Correct.
where they have built enterprise level ETL pipelines serving the entire enterprise. Now, when you migrate, uh, and some of them are already on cloud, right? Because all of those vendors have also cloud deployments available. So they probably are not on-prem, they have moved to cloud, but are still data stage on cloud, like in this example. Right. So when you try to move such services out of still traditional or legacy ETL uh, tools to newer technologies, do you go with let's say what Redshift and services provide out of the box, or there are other ETL tools like Informatica, Matillion, Fivetran, and all the bunch of other ETL tools, right? So how do they stack up against the services that are provided by cloud providers? Do you have any such observation or any other comparison around that?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I'll try to answer this into different parts, Gagandeep. Uh, Option one, what you said, absolutely. I have seen that pattern, and for one of, I do recall one of our customer did migrated from not running on-prem this traditional sources. Maybe you run it on EC2 or those kinds of stuff. Maybe like for a common example is Talent, right? Most of the people
Right.
leverage this Talent on Windows machine, which is on our AWS instead of
Right.
running on. So it all depends on how exactly are you looking around. So if I talk about a similar example of talent itself, right, where people in most of the behavioral of the talent is drag and drop. Like you have more design your jobs which are drag and drop, and you're pretty comfortable and more focused on I want to leverage more modernized way of doing the things in a better fashion, but don't want to leave my drag and drop because it's a heavy change management at my end. Like learning Spark, learning Python is easy, but again, how exactly you're consuming your ETL as of today, in what form, how your developer are doing, that's more important to understand those fact facets, right? And that's where you need to decide who are the people, who are your consumers, and then you decide that whether you want to go with one tool or not. Sorry. So one is the persona, right? Who are the personas and based on what you can do it. Second, what are the different jobs you have, how those jobs have been written. Is the jobs more SQL based kind of oriented or more programming based kind of oriented? Are the programmings are the typical programs what you have, or is it more Spark oriented? What exactly the refactoring cost looks like? That's the second factor I would generally consider. Is it more already Spark based kind of a thing? Then it's all good, you can leverage any of the tools available. If it is more, let's say, some old Python or maybe some old custom based tool which has been developed by many organization, then you need to see, do you really need to leverage what tools, right? Maybe then in the case, that's where you can think about maybe leveraging Glue Studio to drag and drop, use your custom business logic and then drag and drop. Or maybe you can also use DBT. Like this reinvent AWS has understand most of the customer comes from a SQL oriented, so you can fetch out those SQL queries and leverage DBT CLI, which can integrate with Glue. And third comes is the security aspect. One of the thing which I see is when you try to add these different tools in your architecture, the important puzzle that has to be solved is the consistent layer of security. Now, most of the times it becomes so simplified when you leverage AWS or cloud native tools, because security is consistent. Like you talk about data zone, lake formation, or basic things like IAM and KMS, it is very easy. But when it comes to maybe some third party tools or things around it, then security is also very important. And that's where it may be fruitful for your use cases. Like maybe I've seen one cases where cloud native doesn't work a lot better, but some third party works better, is for healthcare customer, where they want to tokenize the record on the fly before even the data record lands on any of the cloud. That tokenization aspect is very critical from a compliance point. So that's where I've seen different other tools the customers are using rather than cloud native. So there are different scenario perspective, I would say. But generally, if you ask me what would be your framework to select which tool, these are the three things I will leverage and take an outcome what this three things metrics looks like, and then I'll go and select the tool.
Okay, thanks. So for AWS Zeroetl, the drag and drop is via
Glue Studio.
Glue Studio. Okay,
Yeah.
awesome. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Hi Sanchit, this is Anjani. Just wanted to
Participants, do you
understand.
have any other questions?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, so just wanted to understand, let's say if someone has, developed uh, different tool suite on the Microsoft stack or Azure stack, which is not exactly on AWS, and if they need to migrate it on AWS, how this Zeroetl can, give them a quick start onto it. It's like, let's say something has been built on Databricks or something has been built on, obviously, this is not so relevant question, but somewhere some client may want to, migrate something from one platform to other.
Right.
It's already on the cloud, let's say it's all there on, Azure Data Factory or maybe in the on-premise legacy system like SSIs or something. So as you suggested to Gagan that there are multiple way to do it. Will that help this one? Is this a easy migration available or is something like again you will have to redo it? But obviously that will be little simpler because you say you don't have to drag and drop or design your ETL in many of the cases where things are straightforward, right?
Correct. So I think what you mentioned, right, AK, I think what you mentioned, that's important, right? When you talk about Microsoft or any specific stack, right, you need to sit down and understand what exactly the stack provides in terms of, as I mentioned, right, what is that refactoring cost? That's more
Mm-hmm.
important. The refactoring
Mm-hmm.
cost is the same thing. Now, for example, you mentioned two, three tools in your question. One is Databricks. Now, if you go
Mm-hmm.
and understand and double click on Databricks, absolutely. Databricks do have Spark. Like when you talk about programming language, most of the people will leverage Spark. And one thing is that then option comes is if you want to move the as is, like you want to minimize the changes as minimal as possible, still want to leverage AWS. Then in that case, you can leverage EMR serverless. If you don't want to manage infrastructure and want to still get those things, you can leverage EMR serverless because that it provides. If Glue do have certain restriction,
In,
then you can
in
leverage
that
their
case,
serverless. Sorry.
yeah. In that case, obviously Databricks can be, I was just giving a context. Maybe Databricks was not a great example there, but especially,
SSIS.
SSIS or, ADF to a certain extent, maybe because people like client mode may change and they, they need to move it to move
Correct.
themselves completely on AWS. Then how this, Zero ETL can be a, easy sellout thing or something.
Exactly. So in case of SSIS, let's take an example of SSIS, right? So as I mentioned, SSIS also most of the time leverages SQL queries, right? It's a SQL queries what you have, which you've wrapped around with an orchestration visual workflow. With
No, not all, not at all. Not completely correct. In many of the cases when things are simple, people simply write in procedure or SQL query and they wrap it. But in many of the cases who are traditional ETL developer, they will do a drag and drop, do
correct.
multi-class, whatever they have to do, they will simply do it in the SSIS workflows rather than writing a SQL query. So that also I
Exactly.
have seen in the past has been, heavily used in places.
Correct. Absolutely. I completely agree with you that SSIS or even the similar things like talent, right? And which is
Mm-hmm.
saying the first point, like when I mentioned three things.
Yeah, they were saying, yeah, yeah.
Correct. The first point was around the change management perspective. Like the change management is people are more used to of doing drag and drop and those kinds of things. That's where it's very important that what you can leverage is maybe Glue Studio is one of them. And there are different connectors out available in the market. Like there are specific organizations or companies available which can allow you looking at your graphical workflow. Like
Mm-hmm.
you have this graph workflow, right? There is a specific
Mm-hmm.
available organization, and you can reach out to me offline. I can recommend you a couple of things where you can leverage your workflow, the runtime workflow file what you have, which is generated whichever tool you talk about. Looking at
Mm-hmm.
that graphical execution workflow, they can do a reverse engineering like a pattern matching, and then they can generate the Spark job. That Spark job, you can run it on Databricks, you run it on AWS EMR, you run it on Glue, and then you can leverage all of the Zeroetl on it. If you want to more simplify, I don't want to write that big custom thing, maybe something available around it. So answer is in every case is do AWS will provide that conversion from maybe XYZ tool to Glue and EMR. Maybe may not be given the tool, what tool are we talking about, but there are specific organizations which I have seen have been very supportive in writing those kinds of a conversion thing.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. Yeah. That's what I wanted to hear from you. But yeah.
Yep. No, I've seen
Mm.
like honestly, I've also done one of the use cases where one of our customers was using Informatica, and
Mm-hmm.
instead of moving towards cloud, they said I want to move towards the cloud ETL only, like what is provided by
Mm-hmm.
ETL, and they were leveraging Informatica left, right, like all over the place the Informatica, and I'm not talking about like 10, 15 jobs. It was 100, 200 plus job. So the volumes
Mm-hmm.
is like huge, and that's what you. It's a common thing when you talk about an enterprise customer leveraging a tool for 10, 12 years. So option
Yeah.
one is I can have more human-based approach, keep converting job by job, which will take you ages to do it. The second option
Mm-hmm.
is we can take more of machine learning based different connectors which are provided by third party. You have to pay one time cost, but that can help you in accelerated way to convert your Informatica jobs or any other jobs to your destination ETL. And that's how you can more focus on leveraging your how you want to simplify and modernize your cloud landscape.
Yeah. 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 This is helpful. Yeah.
Any further questions?
So participant, any further question?
No, thank you. No.
Okay, all right. So this is a secret code, and from this you can download the certificates.
Yeah.
F8I28P.
Okay.
Okay. So thank you, Sanchit, for delivering such a wonderful one for participating in the session. Thank you.
Thank you everyone and have a wonderful weekend ahead. See you in the next session. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Sanjay.